welcome back to our online lecture. Today we are going to focus on lesson planning.
First of all, I want to ask you, why do teachers need to have lesson plans? I hope that you can find the answer after this lecture. So shall we start?
Let's first have the lesson plan format or template. There are hundreds of different templates, so let's see some examples.
As you can see here, there are different parts. The information part, the before, during, and after class parts. There is also an assessment part and a reflection. And of course, we can clearly see the strategy part, and so with the purpose or the objective. This is a pretty clear and organized lesson plan. Now let's check another example. Here it is. Unlike the first example, this lesson plan format is less complicated and less detailed, but it has all the necessary elements of a lesson plan. Objectives or the learning targets are there, and so with assessments, activities, and materials. So that's another format. Now let me show you another one. Here it is. You can see the days, right? Because this is a weekly lesson plan. The first two examples I showed you are examples of daily lesson plans. This one, however, covers the entire week, but it is not as detailed as the first two examples. Just like what I've mentioned earlier, there are many different lesson plan formats or templates. So you just have to check on what is good for what you are trying to achieve. But for our discussion today, we will use a simple one that contains all necessary elements.
This is what we're going to use for our lecture today. It looks complicated, right? But it's actually very simple. So let's check those boxes in detail.
First, this is similar to the information box earlier. This is where you are going to write your name as the teacher and of course the date for the class. When you write a lesson plan, of course you must never forget to write the topic or your lesson. And for you to be able to plan well, you must know the level of your student and the number of students you will be having in your class. Those are simple information but are very important when you plan. Now move to the learning insight. What is that? This is where you are going to write the importance of your lesson. It is where you answer the question, how will this lesson help my student in their daily life? We also have the skill focus. Here is where you are going to write the skills you want to develop for the class. Example would be speaking or vocabulary, writing, and so on. For the materials box, all you need to write on that space are the things or tools you will be needing in class. Lastly, for this part are the objectives. What is it that you want your students to know after your class? What is it that you want your students to do after the class? That is what you are going to specify on this box. I hope you got all of those. Now let's move to the class tabs. We have three parts: the engage, study, and activate. This is where you are going to specify the things you will be doing in class. You are going to write the procedure and strategies you will be using. In class, you cannot avoid some distractions from either your students or some unplanned situations. So it would be very helpful for you to have a plan so you won't be lost. Also, a part of lesson planning is the time allotment. So you must write how many minutes would it take for each step. And so with the materials or aids you will be using. Let's go back to engage part. This is the part when you motivate your students to study. This is where you prepare them for the lesson. We do not simply enter our class and immediately start teaching, right? We first greet them and make sure they are ready for the lesson. Those are the things you have to do when you start your class. Next, study part. This is where we start the content of the day's lesson. Giving and explaining information happened on this stage. All parts of the class are important, but I would say that the study part is the critical part since it is where you let your students know what the class is all about. Alright, now let's have the third part, the activity. This is where you write about the activities you have for your students to apply what they have learned. It is not always the assessment or quiz part, but instead it is about the students practicing or putting whatever they learned in action. Did you get it? I hope so. Let us now have the last part. It's the closure. It's where you write how you're going to end your class. It is not just simply a goodbye part. Of course, you must summarize or reiterate the lesson so your students would not easily forget about it. Also, this is where you can write about the homework you would give if there were any.
So that's all about lesson planning. What I have shown you today is only the basics of lesson planning. There are still a lot of things to consider, but I hope that what you've learned today will help you a lot when you start writing your lesson plans. That would be all for today then. Thank you, and we will see you again next time.